a huge story coming out of Syria. It turns out Bashar al-Assad's government might have been doing a lot more torture than previously recognized. It's not like we didn't know who was up to no good, but now we have stunning new evidence. There's actually 55,000 digital images of about 11,000 victims. It's turned in by a guy whose job was to actually take pictures of these guys. He's military police, he was a photographer. And what's interesting is, and it reminds me of old Germany, because they were so anal about recording everything horrible that they had done. They had a whole process in place. And this photographer didn't witness the torture. He would be brought in later and take pictures of what had been done, because the people who had done it in the different departments needed to get credit for it. And that guy wound up defecting and telling us all about it. And he told it to 3 guys who've been working in these kind of criminal investigations of international crimes for a long, long time, and they find him incredibly credible, and that's very important, okay? So here's how The Guardian explains it. Most of the victims were young men, and many corpses were emaciated, bloodstained, and bore signs of torture. Some had no eyes. Others showed signs of strangulation or electrocution. Now, of course, the source here is very important, because if he's not credible, then we don't really have anything. And look, the government of Qatar is against the government of Syria. They're financing a lot of this. So you got to be careful and make sure that this guy isn't a stooge. Remember, we had a lot of sources in Iraq that turned out to be nonsense, right? But according to The Guardian, quote, these esteemed members that have looked into international criminal crime, looked into international war crimes before, said they, quote, found him credible and truthful, and his account, quote, most compelling. And let me give you a sense of who they are, by the way. Sir Desmond de Silva, he was a former chief prosecutor of the Special Court for Sierra Leone. Sir Jeffrey Nice QC, the former lead prosecutor for former Yugoslavian President Slobodan Milosevic. So these are some heavy hitters in these circles. And then finally, Professor David Crane, who indicted President Charles Taylor of Liberia at the Sierra Leone court. So those are 3 giant cases that went in terms of war crimes. They interviewed this defector, and they say he is credible. And he explains why they took the pictures in the first place. Quote, the reason for photographing executed persons was twofold. First, to permit a death certificate to be produced without families requiring to see the body, thereby avoiding the authorities having to give a truthful account of their deaths. Second, to confirm that orders to execute individuals had been carried out. What's really stomach-turning is the bureaucracy involved. Now, look, I want to get credit for the eye gouging that I did, and so just make sure you noted it. They explain a little further. They say the procedure for documentation was that when a detainee was killed, each body was given a reference number which related to that branch of the security service responsible for his detention and death. And they didn't note that in order to blame them, they noted that in order to give them the proper credit for that torture and execution. Sir Desmond de Silva, who I mentioned earlier, said the evidence documented industrial scale killing, and he went on to say this is a smoking gun of a kind we didn't have before. It makes a very strong case indeed.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's unfortunate that we live in a world where, I mean, the crimes that he committed before this weren't bad enough for us to be really against him. But now we have this, and it's obviously very significant. When we think about sort of political witch hunts and, killing your political rivals, you think you compile a list of names, but 11,000 individuals. And look, this one guy, the one photographer who's been codenamed Caesar, he has these photographs that he smuggled out, but I doubt he was the only photographer that was doing these photos. At other prisons, there might well have been more. I mean, we have 11,000 now. What will we find out if we ever get access to their actual records? And of course, you have to note the timing, the fact that this is coming out right before the peace conference that's going to happen, I believe, within a week. This is not what Assad wanted, obviously. It remains to be seen what actual effect it has.
And look, Qatar has a hand in making sure this guy is seen before that conference. That's why we say, hey, look, you got to be super careful, and that's why we're glad that they have some of the top guys working on this case, because they don't want some sort of peace conference where you have a transition government, which is not much of a transition at all, and the same guys stay in place. So there are those geopolitical forces to consider as well. But overall, I mean, you look at what Bashar al-Assad has done, and I guess he's made his father proud. You know, Hafez al-Assad was considered a butcher. He once went in and killed over 10,000 people reported in one village. And now Bashar al-Assad, unfortunately, has killed multiples of that, and some in the most gruesome ways possible. So this guy, whatever you might think of the Sunnis versus Shias, the rebel forces, which ones are linked to Al-Qaeda or other groups we're not happy with, we know the devil we got, and that's Bashar al-Assad. And it's not in dispute as to whether he's a good guy or bad guy, as we see here. I'm not happy with the devil we got. Yeah. Now, what you do with that information is totally different question, okay? But at least you know it, and that's important.
Yeah.